She told her coworkers, "I'm basically single. He's just convenient." Not knowing I was behind her, I left, packed my things that night. She came home to an empty apartment and a note: "You're not basically single anymore. You just are." Hey viewers, before we continue with the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you'd like to see more stories like this. Thanks. The coffee was still warm. That was the thought that crossed my mind as I poured the dark roast into her favorite mug, the white one with the tiny cactus on it. I brewed it stronger than usual the way she liked it, even though to me it tasted like bitter asphalt. I added a splash of oat milk, no sugar, and set it on the counter beside her keys. A small ritual, one of hundreds that formed the framework of our life together. 3 years. 3 years since I met Chloe at a friend's disastrous barbecue where we bonded over the charred remains of a veggie burger. 3 years of learning the rhythm of her laugh. The way she hummed while concentrating. The fact that she absolutely needed a cup of coffee before she could put together a coherent sentence in the morning. Our apartment reflected that time together. I had painted every wall myself. Agreeable gray, she'd called it, and I used to joke that it perfectly described our relationship. We assembled the IKEA bookshelf together one Sunday, her reading the instructions aloud, with growing frustration while I wrestled with the cam locks. When it finally stood upright, somehow miraculously stable, we both collapsed on the floor laughing. A small framed photo sat on that shelf. It showed us on a beach, her head resting on my shoulder, my arm around her, both of us squinting into the sun. It looked like happiness. It felt like happiness. I was the stable one. I knew that. My job as a project manager was steady and predictable, my salary reliable. It gave Chloe the freedom to pursue her passion as a freelance graphic designer. Even when clients paid late, I'd covered her half of the rent more than once without keeping score, because that's what you did when you were a team. You became the safety net for each other's dreams. Just last month, I'd been accepted into the MBA program I'd been considering for years. I showed her the acceptance email, my heart pounding with pride and anxiety over the cost and time commitment. She kissed my cheek, her expression warm. "That's amazing, Alex, but is now the right time? Things are still so shaky with my work. Maybe we should wait a year, build up our savings a little more. We have plenty of time." So I put my ambition up on a high shelf, satisfied. We had plenty of time. Looking back, the signs were probably there, hidden in quiet moments. The way she started sighing whenever I talked about my friends, calling them boring. The way she rolled her eyes at my weekly meal prep routine, labeling it predictable. The work drinks that began happening more often. Her coming home slightly buzzed, telling stories about colleagues I'd never met. Her energy lively yet distant. But love can be a powerful blindfold. I trusted her. I believed in the life we were building. The one with agreeable gray walls and the crooked bookshelf. I was committed, completely invested. I was, as I would soon realize, simply convenient. A placeholder, a warm body who made the coffee and paid the rent. The text arrived at 4:37 p.m. Big project win. Drinks at the Overlook on 5th. The whole team's going. You should come. I want to show you off. A small kiss emoji punctuated the message. I stared at it as a warm flush of pleasure spread through my chest. I want to show you off. She didn't always invite me to work events. Sometimes I felt like I didn't quite fit the vibrant, creative image she projected there. But today seemed different. That morning she had let me tie her tie for her, a sleek black silk one. As we stood in front of the bathroom mirror, my hands rested lightly on her shoulders while her eyes met mine in the reflection. "You're going to knock them dead," I'd said. "We're a good team, you and I," she replied. Now that memory felt like a shard of glass twisting in my gut. I got caught finishing a project brief and arrived at the Overlook later than I'd hoped. The rooftop bar was all sharp lines and soft lighting, overlooking a city just beginning to glow in the twilight. It was crowded, pulsing with generic house music and the loud, relieved laughter of people unwinding after a successful work week. I spotted her almost immediately. She was the sun at the center of her own little solar system, surrounded by 5 or 6 colleagues in sharp blazers holding artisanal cocktails. Her laugh cut through the noise, a sound I knew so well that now somehow felt unfamiliar. She looked radiant, gesturing with a glass filled with something clear and sparkling, holding the attention of the group around her. A familiar sense of pride stirred inside me. That's my girl. I started weaving through the crowd, a smile already forming on my face. my hand ready to find the small of her back. That's when the crowd shifted, briefly funneling me behind a large architectural potted fern set on a raised platform. It placed me just 3 feet behind her group, completely hidden from their view but close enough to hear every word as clearly as if I were wearing headphones. I was about to call her name when a woman with a severe blonde bob spoke up. "So, Chloe, be honest. Are you and what's his name? Alex, getting serious? 3 years is a long time." Chloe took a slow sip of her drink, a smirk playing across her lips. "Serious?" She let out a light, airy laugh that carried no warmth. "God, no. I mean, he's nice. He's comfortable. But serious? Please." The air left my lungs. It felt like a physical vacuum. A guy in a crisp blue shirt leaning against the railing chimed in. "So what's the deal then? You guys live together, right?" "The deal is," Chloe said, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial tone that carried with perfect, cruel clarity. "I'm basically single. He's just convenient for now. Basically single, just convenient." The words didn't just feel like a blow. They felt like a redefinition of reality. The entire foundation of the past 3 years collapsed into dust in an instant. Convenient. Blonde Bob prompted her again. Her interest clearly piqued. "How so?" "You know how it is," Chloe continued, as if explaining a simple life hack. "He pays half the rent on a fantastic apartment. He fixes things when they break. He's a warm body to come home to who doesn't expect much. But that's it. It's a placeholder situation." She leaned in, and I could see the profile of her smug smile. "I'm definitely keeping my options wide open. I mean, have you seen Ben from accounting? Now that is potential. He has a motorcycle. Alex would probably have a panic attack on a motorcycle." They all laughed. A unified, tinkling chorus of agreement. I stood there, frozen. The noise of the bar, the city, the entire world, faded into a distant, muffled roar. I was a ghost already erased. The utility player, the reliable backup. The interim solution, the guy who made coffee and paid the bills while she waited for someone with a motorcycle to sweep her off her feet. I watched her. I watched this stranger wearing my girlfriend's face, using her voice as she casually dismantled our life, our love, my trust, and offered it up as cheap currency for social approval. The betrayal wasn't just in the words. It was in the effortless ease of it, the sheer unthinking cruelty. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't move. My hand, which had been poised to touch her, fell limp at my side. After a minute that stretched into a small eternity, I turned. I didn't step forward. I didn't reveal myself. I didn't cause a scene. I simply turned and walked away. No one noticed I had ever been there. The drive home was a study in silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a heavy, resonant quiet, like the moment after a bomb detonates and before the debris begins to fall. My hands were steady on the wheel. My breathing was even. The frantic, shattered feeling I might have expected was absent, replaced instead by a cold, surgical clarity. The fog had lifted, and the path ahead was brutally, undeniably clear. I walked into our apartment, and the familiar scent of her jasmine candle hanging in the air felt like mockery. The cozy warmth of the place now seemed suffocating. I didn't collapse onto the sofa. I didn't pour myself a drink. I went straight to the storage closet, moving with a purpose that felt both strange and completely right. I pulled out my 2 large suitcases and a stack of cardboard boxes I had kept for moving season. I started in the bedroom, our bedroom. I opened the closet and looked at the divided space. Her side was a riot of color and texture, dresses, blouses, scarves. My side was neat and orderly, a row of button-down shirts, a stack of sweaters, a few pairs of jeans. I began with the shirts, sliding them off the hangers one by one. I didn't crumple them in anger. I folded them carefully, the way my mother had taught me, and placed them in the suitcase. Each folded shirt became another layer of distance between me and the life I was leaving behind. In the bathrobe, I removed my toothbrush from the holder where it stood beside hers. My razor, the half-used bottle of cologne she'd given me for my birthday. The one she said she loved. I left the towel with the gray stripe, the one we'd once argued over as mine or hers. It didn't matter anymore. In the living room, I stood in front of the bookshelf we had built together. I took my books, the project management textbooks, my worn-out copies of Vonnegut and Asimov. I left the design anthologies and the pop psychology bestsellers that belonged to her. My eyes landed on the framed beach photo, our smiling faces squinting into the sunlight. A perfect lie. I didn't smash it. I didn't even open the frame. I simply turned it face down on the shelf and walked away. It was for memory to deal with now. I was a placeholder, so I placed myself somewhere else. It took me 2 hours. The process was methodical and unhurried. There was no rage in it, only a deep and final detachment. When I finished, the apartment looked lopsided. A ghost of my presence lingered in the empty spaces, the bare hooks in the closet, the vacant spot on the bathroom shelf, the gaps in the bookshelf. It was the negative image of a life. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we had shared countless meals, where we had planned imaginary vacations and talked through real worries. I took a single sheet of the nice stationery we kept for thank you notes. The pen felt heavy in my hand. I didn't write a long, emotional letter. I didn't list my grievances or try to make her understand the depth of the hurt. There was no point. She had already shown that she wouldn't, or couldn't, understand. Any explanation would be a form of engagement, and I was done engaging. I wrote 3 lines. They weren't an accusation. I wrote 3 lines. They weren't an accusation. They weren't a plea. They were simply a statement of new fact. Chloe, you're not basically say, niggle anymore, you just are. Alex, I propped the note against the fruit bowl in the center of the table, the bowl she always promised she'd keep filled with fresh fruit, but which now held only a single withering lemon and a scattering of crumbs. I did one final walk through. Bedroom, bathroom, living room. I looked at the hollows I had left behind. I felt nothing. No last-minute pang of loss. No flicker of what, if. Just the quiet certainty of a necessary amputation. I placed my key on the counter, a final soft click beside the note. Then I walked out, pulling my suitcase behind me. I closed the door gently, not slamming it. I didn't look back. The hallway was empty and silent. The elevator dinged as it arrived. As the doors closed, sealing me inside, I took a deep, clean breath. It was over. The hotel room was a blank slate, beige walls, a generic landscape painting, the faint smell of industrial cleaner. It was perfect. There were no memories here, no ghosts in the corners. I dropped my suitcases by the door, the dull thud echoing in the sterile quiet. I didn't turn on the TV. I simply sat on the edge of the bed, the firm mattress barely giving under my weight, and let the silence settle around me. The initial cold clarity held firm. There was no weeping, no screaming into a pillow. It was as if the part of my brain that processed emotional pain had been surgically removed. In its place was a vast, empty landscape. It wasn't peaceful, but it was quiet. And after the deafening noise of betrayal, quiet felt like a victory. I powered off my phone and placed it face down on the nightstand. I didn't need the world intruding. Not yet. For 2 days, I existed inside that bubble. I ordered overpriced room service, watched the city lights from my window, and slept a deep, dreamless sleep. I was a system in shutdown, running only essential functions. The unfairness of it all was a fact, not a feeling. A premise I had accepted. She used you. You believed her. Now it's over. There was no arguing with the logic. On the 3rd morning, with a dull sense of obligation, I turned my phone back on. It erupted, a digital avalanche of sound and light. A delayed explosion from the life I had left behind. First, the missed calls, 7 from Chloe. Then the notifications for voicemails. I pressed play on the first one, my expression neutral. Chloe's voicemail, 10:18 p.m. Alex, where are you? Did you get stuck at work? Whatever. Just call me when you get this, okay? My key isn't working. Her voice carried a hint of annoyance, not concern. The next one came an hour later. Chloe's voicemail, 11:32 p.m. Okay, this isn't funny. Your stuff is gone. What the hell is going on? What does this note mean? You just are. What is that? Call me right now. Then the text began. A timeline of her shifting understanding. Chloe, 8:02 a.m. Day 2, Alex. Seriously, what is this? Are you having some kind of breakdown? We need to talk. This is insane. Chloe, 10:41 a.m. I read the note again. Is this about what I said at the bar? You were there? That was just work talk. I was blowing off steam. You can't be this sensitive. You're overreacting. Chloe, 1:15 p.m. You can't just leave like this. This is our home. My name is on the lease, too. You're being a coward. I read every message. I listened to each voicemail. I felt nothing except a distant analytical curiosity, like a scientist observing the predictable behavior of a lab specimen. Anger was her first response. Then came minimization, just work talk, blowing off steam. She was trying to frame the nuclear destruction of our relationship as my inability to take a joke. I didn't block her. I didn't reply. I simply observed. It was the first sign of the power rev. Ursel, her screaming into a void. Me silent on the other side. A week in, the tone shifted from anger to panic. The karma began seeping in at the edges. Chloe, week 2, Alex, please. I'm sorry. I was stupid, and I was showing off. They were pressuring me. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you. It was the first I love you. It felt like an insult, a transactional plea, not an emotion. Then the first external vector. My phone lit up with a call from Sarah, one of Chloe's friends, the one who had always seemed to view me as a slightly disappointing accessory. I let the call go to voicemail. Sarah's voicemail mark at Sarah. Look, I know things ended badly between you and Chloe, but you need to be the bigger person here. She's a mess. She's crying all the time. She can't afford this apartment by herself. You know that. Her mom is on her case, and it's awkward at work now. People heard what happened and they're judging her. She needs you. Stop being so cold. I deleted the message. Be the bigger person, the universal mantra of enablers everywhere. It was no longer my concern. Her tears, her financial stress, her social embarrassment. None of these were my problems to solve. They were simply the consequences of her own words finally becoming real. Chloe's text grew more unhinged, a frantic swing between desperation and venom. Chloe, week 3, I have to move out. I can't believe this. I'm packing up our home because of you. My mom is letting me stay with her. It's so humiliating. Are you happy now? Chloe, week 4, I know you moved. Someone saw you. Where are you? We need to settle this. There's still stuff of yours here. A transparent lie. I had been thorough. Then the mask fell away completely, revealing the anger that had always been there. Chloe, week 5, you're really going to ghost me after 3 years? You're a coward, Mark. A cold, heartless robot. No wonder I felt single. You were never emotionally available anyway. You did this. You destroyed us. I read that last message while unpacking in my new apartment. A sleek, modern one-bedroom with a view I had chosen for myself. I didn't delete it right away. I saved it. It was a perfect artifact, a monument to her hypocrisy. She was the victim of her own actions, and I was the villain for accepting them. The storm was raging on the other side of the glass, and for the first time, I allowed myself a small, quiet smile. I was safe, I was dry, and I was free. The new coffee shop near my office became my sanctuary. It had exposed brick walls and reclaimed wood tables, filled with the quiet hum of students and freelancers, a world away from the trendy rooftop bars of my old life. I was there most mornings, using the reliable Wi-Fi to review project plans for my new team. The promotion had come with a significant raise, enough to make the MBA program a real possibility, something I was reconsidering on my own terms. I was waiting for my latte, scrolling through photos from a sailing trip I'd taken the previous weekend, a new hobby that filled my lungs with clean, salty air instead of the stale scent of betrayal, when I felt it, a presence lingering at the edge of my space. I looked up. Chloe. She looked broken. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in a worn-down, frayed-at-the-edges way. Her clothes, usually so polished, were rumpled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Without makeup, her face looked pale and vulnerable. The vibrant energy that once defined her was gone, replaced by a nervous, brittle stillness. Alex, she said, her voice barely more than a thin thread of sound. Chloe, I replied. My tone was the same one I used with a delivery driver confirming an address. Polite, neutral, completely empty of history. Can I? She gestured weakly toward the empty chair across from me. I gave a slight, non-committal nod. She slid into the seat, her movements hesitant, as if the chair might collapse beneath her. I've been trying to reach you, she began, her fingers twisting together on the table. For months. I know. The flatness of my response seemed to unsettle her. She had probably rehearsed this moment expecting anger, or tears, or at least some opening for negotiation. She took a shaky breath. I had to move back in with my mom. It's awful. She lectures me every day about responsibility. She keeps asking what happened. She looked at me, searching my face for a reaction, for some trace of the sympathy I used to give her so easily. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "And work," she continued, her voice cracking. "It's been horrible. Everyone knows. They look at me like I'm a monster. That senior designer promotion I was up for. They gave it to Stacy. Can you believe that?" I set my cup down. "I can, actually." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means your actions have consequences, Chloe. You presented yourself as someone who uses people for convenience. Companies tend to prefer leaders who show loyalty and integrity." I said it calmly, as if explaining a simple business principle. "You sound so cold," she whispered, a tear finally escaping and tracing a line down her pale cheek. "I'm just being realistic. I lost everything, Alex. The dam broke," and her voice rose, drawing a few curious glances from nearby tables. "My home, my reputation, everything. All because of one stupid comment I didn't mean. No," I said, my voice still steady, a rock against the crash of her emotions. "You lost it all because that one stupid comment was the truth. You finally said out loud what you really thought of me, of us. I just believed you. I didn't mean it," she cried, her composure collapsing completely. "It was a joke. You're throwing away 3 years over a joke, over one moment of me being stupid and showing off. It wasn't a joke to me, and I'm not throwing anything away. I'm simply living in the reality you created." I met her eyes. "You said you were basically single. I made it official. You said I was just convenient. I decided to become convenient for myself for a change." She stared at me, her face streaked with tears and raw anger. "So that's it? After everything we had, after all the good times, you're just going to sit there and watch me drown? You don't feel anything?" This was the core of it, the final question. "I'm not watching you at all, Chloe," I said, my voice lowering to a mere whisper, forcing her to lean closer to hear me. It made the words feel more intimate and more final. "I stopped watching you the moment I walked out of that apartment. Your life, your struggles, your consequences, they have nothing to do with me. I've moved on. You should try it." I stood, slinging my laptop bag over my shoulder. I looked at her one last time. This woman who had once been the sun in my sky. I searched for some trace of the love I had felt, some echo of the pain. There was nothing, only a vast, quiet indifference. She was a stranger now, and not a particularly pleasant one. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said, and I meant it. But I also knew with absolute certainty that what she was searching for, a convenient placeholder, was no longer me. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, the bell on the door chiming softly behind me. Outside, bright morning sun warmed my face. I didn't look back. The past was a closed book, its weight finally gone. My future was a wide, open sea, and for the first time I was unquestionably the captain of my own ship. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments.